I wish every student of meditation could watch this. This morning's lesson is drawn from the 40th verse of yong-jig xuan-jue's The Song of Enlightenment. Together let's chant. People ask what is the source of my understanding, I tell them the power of the great wisdom that comes from inhalations, awareness, and exhalations release. If it is right or wrong, nobody knows. If it makes sense or not, not even the gods can tell. I have been practicing this for kalpas, and not just to make people confused. Okay. What's the big deal? What's the big Megillah? Why am I all excited for people to learn these lessons? As you progress upon the path, people will notice. Cats will notice. Dogs will notice. Even humans will notice. And invariably, those who are interested in such things will come to the conclusion that you've stumbled upon a shortcut that they haven't, that you've learned a secret handshake or you have purchased a sacred tchotchke, or that you have emptied your bank account to receive a special blessing. But here is the thing that's worth the price of admission, even though the price of admission is free. The secret of the Buddha's path is that it's a method. It's a generalized method that can be applied to anyone, to any circumstance, at any time, and in any place. It's very simple and it's very easy. Why is it easy? Because it uses our wetware. It uses the ancient circuitry latent within the central nervous system of every complex living vertebrate life form on this planet. Now, what makes us what causes most humans to be head and shoulder above, a house cat, is that we have evolved in such a way as to have language so that it becomes even easier for us to work with the various facets of our autonomic nervous system. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our sympathetic nervous system. It has not evolved for active concentration. It has not evolved for mind blanking. It has evolved to just notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we spontaneously and effortlessly and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both physical relaxation and mental release. This is it. There is no mystical contemplation that needs to be exercised through elitist skullduggery. There is no fervent faith that needs to be believed. We're just using the factory installed mechanism that all of us were born with. But it can be applied to every circumstance. All of us, most of us remember, what was that? Admiral Akbar from Return of the Jedi. It's a trap. That's what certitude is. Certitude is a rigidity that is antithetical to letting go. Rigidity is antithetical to peace. You cannot believe your way to peace any more than you can fuck your way to virginity. Don't get me wrong. Spending an afternoon having sex is great fun, but it's not going to get you anywhere nearer to that specific goal. Similarly, it can be very exciting and very fun and feel very important to really have a strong belief, but that's not going to give you the freedom, the flexibility that Buddha offers us. And so when we read this morning's text, we see that the author said, this may be 100% correct, it might not. The inference is, all I know is the results I seem to be getting. And that's the true power of causality, is that we don't have to believe, we don't have to be rigid, we can be open to new ideas, we can test them in the laboratory of our body and mind, and we can notice the results. If the results undermine our peace and our love, or amplify our peace and love, we can make distinctions and make subtle adjustments to our behaviors on the path. This is super important. This is super important. And this is why it's come at the end. The Buddha was not cryptic. Yes, over many, many, many centuries, people with varying degrees of intellectual integrity and nimbleness of mind have tried to transcribe the teachings or translate the teachings or explain the teachings. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I used to go on camper trips with my family. And sometimes we'd stop at a shit shop, also known as a roadside attraction. And a constant item me and my sister saw were little white aerosol cans. No, I take it back. It was little placards that read, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. That was not unique to the roadside attractions of the American West. That is a universal principle. And around the world, there are so many people who are charlatans, who will seek to hide their ignorance and their confusion and their spiritual impotence behind cryptic statements, lying to people that if they can't understand the cryptic statement, then it's an indictment against them, or that they just need to puzzle it out for a decade or two. But that is not what the Buddha taught. That is not what the author of the Song of Enlightenment taught. That is not what the author of the Spaciousness of Vajrasattva taught. The great spiritual giants taught plainly. And if your teacher is cryptic and delights in your puzzlement, find a better teacher. Let's tie this up in a big red bow. The method is simple and generalized, applicable to all. Certitude does more harm than good. The teachings are to be plain and easy. I'm going to spell them out in even greater detail in about a minute or two. I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So I'm going to start hitting the techniques, and then I plan on answering James' question. James, you have a tough name to put a possessive after, because in writing I can start an apostrophe after the final S, but when it comes to speaking it, I have to sound like a stuttering second grader and say, James is question. I look forward to answering your question. I'm not going to leave you in the lurch. I guarantee it. We're going to begin with a recitation. This recitation is not intended to be a prayer to real or imagined celestial entities, for doing so makes petulant, mewling infants of us all. Rather, we're just using words to exercise the neural pathways responsible for intentions. The empathetic intentions of bodhicitta and the enthusiastic, effortless intentions of refuge. We're going to begin with a recitation that is fairly literal, and we're going to set it to a triplet-inspired chant together. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, by relying on thee. Buddha's example, instructions, and students. Consider, if you will, these three nouns, which over the centuries have been so beneficial to Buddhist students that they've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, kind of like Aladdin's lamp. This version of the same wish is more concise and more figurative, and we're setting it to the bookend chant. We're also going to recite it 3 times. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. As children, the first bicycle we most likely received came with training wheels, which were rather clunky, but got the job done. Similarly, this morning's first contemplative exercise is downright ungainly. As we breathe in, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to physically sit as erect as we can, generating a vertical traction between our tush and our head. Mentally, we're going to silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. During our exhalation, we're going to physically relax as best we can, while silently and mentally reciting, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. So James asked, I was wondering if the Sanskrit word mukti, described as liberation, is parallel to enlightenment. Thank you for being here for us. You, my friend, are utterly welcome. So, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet taught that every Buddhist Lama is his own sect. So, not all Lamas are going to agree, and that's just fine. The same is true with other spiritual traditions. India is a vast continent, and there are many, many yogis and swamis and gurus, and each with different views on the teachings, some very subtle differences, some very gross differences, some agree on the same terminology, some have different definitions for everything. So it's been my experience that just because a teacher uses the word enlightenment or liberation doesn't mean they have the same intention as the Buddha. They could be very wise and they could be very loving, but it doesn't mean, so we all carry around with us our own private lexicons, our own private dictionaries, whether we know it or not. That's why in Philosophy 101, they teach us that to have a meaningful and productive discussion, we must begin by agreeing upon what certain words mean. Otherwise, we will never be able to know what the other person is thinking or understanding or feeling or perceiving. So there's two extremes. The first extreme says you can't trust a teacher. They're flawed and some are nefarious. And so if you maximize the number of teachers you receive lessons from, then increase the probability of you receiving the truth. The other extreme is that if you have too many teachings from too many perspectives, it's going to simply multiply your confusion. The middle ground is simply making the test of whatever technique you receive, not whether or not others agree with it, but merely making the test of whatever technique we receive, the effects that it generates in our body and mind as we practice it. As little as 5 minutes a pop, once every 12 hours for 7 consecutive days. That's how we know if a teaching is useful, how it affects our mind and our body and our particular journey that we are on at this moment. If you've just joined, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. There is no need to wait till the end. I would prefer it if you asked your question or typed your question the moment it occurred to you. Now let us remove the first of 2 metaphoric training wheels, thus reducing the length of our contemplative exercise from 12 syllables per breath down to just 3. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, "Notice this." And during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite, "Relaxing." Now let us remove the second of two metaphoric training wheels, thus reducing the length of our contemplative exercise from 3 syllables per breath down to just 1. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite this, and during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite ease. This is a demonstrative pronoun, and ease is a monosyllabic verb which functions as a synonym of relax. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, I invite you to join me as a team, as together we meditate as transformatively as Obi-Wan Kenobi upon the sands of Tatooine under the guidance of the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn. Let us turn our attention to this rather colorful image right here. It contains two Buddhas sporting in tantric union, and it functions as a reminder of many useful ideas. We're going to begin just with the name. This is known in Sanskrit, or this could be described in Sanskrit as Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri Karma Mudra. In Tibetan, it could be described as Kuntu Zongpo Yab Yum, which could translate into English as all good mother, all good father in tantric union. So, how's about a quick reminder? Now, it looks like something got obscured here, which is kind of lame. So let me try to this a bit. There we go. So, every time we breathe in, we automatically and effortlessly access our sympathetic nervous system. It is ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It is not wired for active concentration, but instead for us to simply notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Inhalation's passive perception is symbolized by the all-good tantric mother. Every time we exhale, oopsie, that's weird. Let's fix this real quick. Okay. Every time we exhale, we automatically and effortlessly access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is found within the lower lumbar region as well as the tippy top of the cervical region of that same spinal cord. Every time it is so wired so that every time we exhale, we can physically relax and mentally release. This is symbolized by the all good tantric fellow, the color of an azure sky. The nudity of the all good tantric couple reminds us that of the vulnerability necessary for awareness. Please think of the all good tantric couple purely as archetypes, not as gods or goddesses to be believed or worshipped or feared. The translucence of the tantric couple reminds us that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. The beauty of this tantric archetype, or the set of tantric archetypes, reminds us that the primary fringe benefit, the primary byproduct of vulnerable mindfulness and releasing meditation is love. And the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from love's centered spontaneity, our lives can be amazing. Consider, if you will, the female archetype, the color of a cumulus cloud. She is depicted as sporting in tantric union, in wanton abandon. This reminds us to choose spontaneity over contrivance. Let us turn our attention to the male archetype, the color of the azure sky. The passiveness of his posture reminds us that there are two types, that spontaneity is better centered than scattered. Welcome to this morning's live stream. During each inhalation, we could effortlessly access the sympathetic nervous system, which is not wired for concentration, but instead to simply notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. To prevent the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears from interfering with this sympathetic nervous system, during each inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During each exhalation, our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lumbar and cervical regions of our spinal cord, are wired for physical relaxation and mental release. To prevent our brain from running amok, we can allow it to cooperate simply by silently and mentally uttering the monosyllabic verb ease during each exhalation, which functions as a synonym of relax. If at any point during the remainder of this live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Do not wait till the end. Rather, strike while the iron is hot. Consider the active role the female archetype plays in this tantric act, and the passive role the male archetype plays. This could remind us to transcend the folly of the preconceptions of sexist, or I should say the limitations of sexist preconceptions. Consider the hair color of the female archetype. In India, as brunettes age, they often will rinse their hair with henna. And so, as someone transitions from middle age to old age, their brown hair is replaced with red. This tantric art reminds us to transcend the limitations of sexual assumptions. For in days of yore, it was not uncommon for postmenopausal widows to take strapping young men as their tantric partners. The female archetype is the color of a cumulus cloud. The male archetype is the color of the azure sky. May we transcend the limitations of our racist preconceptions. as we gaze upon the archetypical couple, bare of any trappings of culture or class, and we transcend the limitations of classism. Let us seal this morning's practice with 2 chants, beginning with kind ethics, and then concluding with the 4 immeasurables. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness with a spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10¼ hours, I would very much like to return to lead this evening's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.